Now, this bill can't bring your daughters back, but it's going to ensure that their lives carry meaning, that it carries meaning far beyond their years.
In the coming days, Governor Abbott is expected to sign into law a handful of bills, including Senate Bill 1, responding to the deadly flooding in central Texas. Flower Mound Senator Tan Parker is chair of the state Senate Republican caucus. He has been outspoken about relief and disaster preparedness. Several of the young girls from Camp Mystic who passed away in the flooding lived in his district. I spoke with him at the Capitol just before lawmakers overwhelmingly passed the bills. Your motivation for these flood bills, SB 1, SB 2, SB 3, what is your motivation?
Well, there's nothing more important than taking care of these families that have lost everything and losing a loved one, a precious child, remember their family, and making certain that we do something meaningful in their honor and memory so that future generations of Texans don't suffer the way that so many families in Texas have this summer.
At least 7 of these victims, the children, were from DFW. Do you know any of these families?
I do know some of those families. It is absolutely tragic, beyond words, what has occurred. Our hearts are broken for them. One of the things that I think is so special is the way that Texans have come together, Texans helping Texans, to help these families during the most devastating time to lose a child, to lose any loved one, much less a child. And so, yes, to see their suffering, to know what they're going through, is beyond comprehension.
I've seen some criticism about the timeline. Everybody seems to agree about the flooding. The legislature seems to be tackling redistricting first. We've heard from some kind of disgruntled viewers about that. What do you think about that? Why do redistricting first and not the flooding?
We are laser focused on recovery and on SB 1. That is our priority. This special session, SB 1, is all about taking care of future campers and campgrounds. I'm happy to talk about that in some more detail, but that's our focus. We divide up as a division of labor, obviously, with regard to things that are on the call, but our focus, there's nothing more important. Let me be very clear. I speak on behalf of every colleague of mine on the Republican and Democrat side of the aisle in the Senate. There's nothing more important than getting this done right and making certain that future generations of Texans don't suffer the way that this generation of Texans have suffered this summer.
So SB 1, a big standout part of that bill to me was this will prohibit operating cabins in a flood zone, correct?
No, that's exactly right. When SB 1 passes, no child, no kid that ever goes off to camp will ever sleep again in one of these floodplains, in a cabin right there in the floodplain. It won't happen. Those camps are going to have to redesign their layout. They're going to have to put housing in areas where they're not in a flood zone. They can play and use the great water amenities during the day, but they're never going to sleep in a cabin in a floodplain ever again when Senate Bill 1 passes. So not only will no child ever sleep again in one of these cabins in a floodplain, but there's going to be a ladder in every one of those cabins. There's going to be a weather radio. There are going to be disaster recovery plans filed that are there in the system with the Texas Department of Emergency Management. And they're all going to be licensed by the Department of Safety and Health Services, DSHS, to make certain that we really have real teeth and structure for every organization, every camp that wants to operate here in Texas.
And also part of SB 1, it seems that there's more assignment of responsibility and accountability. Each camp has to have an emergency coordinator. So you're in charge. This person's in charge, that person's in charge. Because there was some confusion of who's in charge to make sure this all happens.
100%. Look, let's be very candid. The camps themselves did not have an adequate level of preparation and training across the board. So that has to be dramatically ramped up, and those plans now have to be on file with the Texas Department of Emergency Management. Then beyond all of that, of course, in the other bills. So we'll pass Senate Bill 1, like I said, on the floor of the Senate on Thursday night. But we've already passed 3 additional bills addressing this topic. The first one broadly is all about infrastructure support and preparation and readiness with TDEM for the counties, for the governmental entities, and putting in place additional trainers to be able to make certain that we have another generation of first responders that can respond to these fast-moving water conditions and do more rescues. Our first responders did an incredible job. Thousands of lives were saved, literally, in July. But we've got to grow our core of these first responders with this specialty. We're also putting in $24 million specifically for new technology so we can better detect these meteorological occurrences, these little bursts, microbursts. And some of that technology is coming from our own University of Texas at Arlington and DFW. And then on top of that, a critical piece of our funding is $50 million for siren technology. Old school, large, loud sirens, there's no substitute.
I apologize for somewhat of an insensitive question, but it's maybe in 5 years and 10 years down the way, somebody who runs a camp may go, Texas is a private property state. Why do we need all these new rules? It won't happen at my camp.
Phil, I believe that every family, every parent, when they drop off their son or daughter at camp, need to have peace of mind they're going to return to their family safely in a week or 2 weeks or a month, whatever it may be. That's the standard that we must judge ourselves by. And so to put in place this regulatory standard that protects these precious kids, responsible plans, that we build housing not in floodplains in these camps, these are basics that need to be done. And at the end of the day, we cannot put a price on a human life. And it is vital that we do it right.
Many of the parents of the victims from Camp Mystic were present as lawmakers passed those bills. More than 130 people died in the July 4th flooding, including nearly 40 children. 27 of those stayed overnight at Camp Mystic. In a statement, the parents of 8-year-old Virginia Hollis of Belleville said, in part, "For the first time since we lost our child, we feel that her voice is being heard." One Republican in the legislature did vote against these flooding bills, Midlothian Republican Brian Harrison. The bill passed 136-1. The representative said he could not support the bill following amendments by Democrats. Harrison said the final version created new rules for all camps, even those where safety was not an issue at the moment.